Terry Lee and I are really excited to have this conversation with all of you today. And I'm going to have her start by introducing herself and her work. And then I will do like a brief bio of myself and why I chose to host this on Ghost Mother. And then I'm going to have Terry go ahead and kind of kickstart our conversation. If you have any like questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. I can see them and I'll periodically check them. But we're really excited to get together. Terry and I were just saying before we went live that it's been a while since we've been able to have this kind of a chat, and just feeling that joy right now for me to be in your presence is just great.
Yes.
Okay, so go
It's
ahead
like
and tell
old friends.
everybody. Yes.
So yeah, I'm Terry Lee. I manage 5 publications on Substack, but right now my most active one is Fierce Love, which I recently in January rebranded from the Mindful Sense Mentor into Fierce Love based on the Operation Metro Surge that happened in my home state of Minnesota with ICE coming in. And Jeannie, you and I have had this conversation a couple of times, and you really were you were a mother to me in the midst of all that, where you met me for Zoom and had a conversation and just listened to me and the trauma that I was dealing with. And so what I've evolved into, and really where this conversation of mothering is coming up right now, is I am writing the stories of the average, everyday, ordinary women who are stepping up to be heroes. They're the helpers in all of this. And really I've taken on as my responsibility to document the quiet, unheard stories of the women, specifically the women who are becoming mothers or serving as mothers in this community through all this trauma. And so every Tuesday, I publish one of those completed stories. And then every day on Substack, I am publishing a little excerpt as a note of the helpers who are, quote, giving a shit, like how we're stepping up. And really, it's because we have a society that has forgotten what it means to have a mother, I think. And that's why
Yes.
Ghost Mother is so significant. It's like the whole relationship of that kind of unconditional love that comes out of a mother. I think that's what our society needs more than anything right now. And so that's why I approached you about Ghost Mother. Like, let's talk about how mothering is being ghosted right now, and we really need it more than ever.
Yeah. But also, I love how you're saying that these are like the unsung heroes and heroines in our midst, because they really are everywhere. And I actually value deeply elevating and honoring and celebrating the ordinary everyday. And I think that the world is going to change from acknowledging and putting on a platform and a pedestal these quiet heroes that are really stepping up in ways that the world's not going to recognize. You know, they don't necessarily have the power and the money and the clout or the celebrity, but they're doing like really brave, beautiful things, and they're connecting the threads that form the fabric of our society, really. So that's exactly what I think Ghost Mother is really about, because I really want to honor the ways that we are mothers that goes beyond the conventional definition of mother. And I think that from a lot of the guest posts that I've already featured the first half of this year, that's really starting to show in the ways that women are celebrating each other's stories and the way that they're sharing their own stories. Because you and I talked last year, I think, Terry Lee, when you posted your guest post on my Substack, that really opened up a conversation about how motherhood isn't just about giving birth to a biological child. There are so many ways that we are mothers to other people. And I just want to allow women to be able to have their space and their time, and to be able to bear witness to their stories of being a mother, whether it is a spiritual motherhood, or it is being an adopted mother or a foster mother, or giving birth to a project or some type of creative work or volunteer work or any kind of effort that they do in their community. So I love that we're doing this in this space. And I guess I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jeannie Ewing, and I host Ghost Mother, which is my newer publication. My older publication on Substack is called I Grow Strong Again. And mostly on that platform, I post a couple of guest posts every month. And I share a lot about my own kids and what I learned from them, especially my daughter Sarah and all of her kind of kindness projects and movement that she's doing with her art and her affirmations. So Ghost Mother is kind of like my newer endeavor, and it actually came from Terry Lee, kind of mentoring me, and you were a mother to me and helping me form this idea of, wow, maybe this could be a community that's beyond just an essay that I wrote last year that I shared with you that I never would have imagined. So I think you and I kind of have that type of connection that has we have a maternal heart for each other, and we're able to hold space for other people and their pain and their joys and everything in between. So let's talk more about this subject of how our culture needs mothers and we how can we be the mothers in our communities.
I I want to thank you for bringing up that first guest post that I did on I Grow Strong Again. I hadn't forgotten about it, but it's tangential because it was a year ago, but it was around Mother's Day and talking about how tender and difficult Mother's Day is for me because I didn't have children. And yet I have done a lot of mothering in my life. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking about all these concepts of ghost mothering and how the mothers work so anonymously and quietly and so forth, and that even women who don't have children are mothers, I think it's also an avenue of the men who have a feminine mothering energy as well.
Agree, agree.
And so in answering your question, what's very prevalent to me right now, I'm always like my heart just gets pulled out of me every time something happens with ICE. And so what's happening right now in New Jersey is that there are protesters outside of Delaney Detention Center because inside Delaney Detention Center, 300 of the detainees are staging a hunger strike because of the conditions there. And a man came out in a very, very feminine mothering energy in this week, and that was New Jersey United States Senator Andy Kim. And if you remember, or maybe some people don't even know this, back after the January 6th event at the Capitol, pictures were published of Andy Kim late at night in the middle of the night cleaning up the floor of the Capitol by himself. I mean, that is very nurturing, mothering energy of like, I love and I care for this space, and I don't care if anyone knows what I'm doing. I just want to return this space to the beauty that it is, that it should be, that we have in this beautiful building. And now, yes, not yesterday, but within this week, he went to the detention center in New Jersey and he demanded entry to the, as is his right as a U.S. senator, as part of oversight, to enter and speak to different people and detainees inside the facility. And when he came out and discovered this huge altercation between ICE and the protesters outside and all the riot gear and the tanks and the guns and so forth, there's a viral picture of him floating around the internet right now of him holding his arms up between this big ICE vehicle with ICE men on it and the protesters, and he's simply trying to de-escalate. He's
Mm,
saying, can we just talk about this? And of course it
mm,
devolved into a violent scene, as things usually do in these circumstances. But it's that image is, to me, the concept of how our world needs to return to that concept of unconditional love that a mother holds for her child when she gives birth, and that unconditional love that we need to hold for each other. And here's this man holding up his hands, basically saying, I want everyone to figure out how to love each other in some way, how
yes.
to come together.
That's really encouraging to hear coming from a politician because that's something that I've felt really disheartened by just being an American, in the last, I don't even 10 years, maybe. Just the leadership examples that they're how they're modeling the behavior is increasingly divisive. And I often find that many people end up participating in it by taking a side. And I really love that image of holding our hands up as a bridge between this side or belief or ideology or whatever we want to say, and the other that might be completely opposing one another, because that is exactly what I think our world needs in terms of collective healing. What we're participating in and what we're seeing and what we're having the effects and consequences of is collective trauma. It absolutely 100% is. And so we do need these maternal attributes of unity and peacemaking and sensitivity and thoughtfulness and vulnerability and authenticity and tenderness. We need these attributes no matter what human they're coming from, because we, like you said, Terry, we all, no matter if we're male or female, we all have the potential to display and hone these traits. And so how heartening it is to hear about someone in a position of political leadership who is actually doing the hard thing of demonstrating what would it look like for us to be bridges in our community. Um, how desperate I feel when I hear these heartbreaking stories and I see the effects of, even in my own state of Indiana, we're not really largely affected like you are in Minnesota or even in New Jersey. I see the effects of this collective trauma weighing on people's shoulders, hanging on their faces when I go out in public. I see it. It's very
Mhm.
clear to me in the way that people carry themselves and their body language. And um, there's such a sadness, such a weight, almost like I feel this grief just emanating wherever I go, whether it's the grocery store or it's taking my daughter Sarah to a doctor's appointment. And so it makes me think about that. Like, I'm in this space right now. What can I do in some small way to bring a little bit of light? And it doesn't have to be anything substantial or significant. And that's, I think, where a lot of us get kind of tripped up too, is we look at the bigger problems in our world and in our country, and we think there's no way I can do anything to change that. And at the same time, we can, bit by bit, day by day, in our individual areas, like our neighborhoods and our families and our places of employment. And like you're seeing and participating in, Terry, when we get together with other people, there's power in that. And I really find that, especially the conversations that I'm seeing in my Ghost Mother publication and on the broader scale on Substack, because I'm not on any other social media, that the power that these women are bringing into sharing stories and bearing witness is huge. And I feel that healing when I see someone supporting another person, holding them up. And there's something really beautiful about that. I think there's some people that are saying stuff in the chat. Libra says, I'm sorry. I know that you are a survivor in a very big sense. That was earlier. That was when you were talking, Terry. Um, Amy Victoria, is he free? Thank you. I don't know who he is. Can you clarify that, Amy Victoria? Who do you mean by he? Mel. Hi, Mel. I haven't talked to you in a while. Doing our work locally and in our spaces where we do have influence. Yeah, Mel, you and I have talked a little bit about bringing empathy into our everyday experiences because, like you were talking about too, Terry, there is something about learning a pathway of de-escalation and nonviolence. And it really is a learned skill. And it's something that I think is vital in terms of how do we, when we find ourselves in these situations that are really, really heightened, and there's a lot of big feelings, and you can tell that there's some rage stirring. How do we use this particular type of skill, a de-escalation skill, if we can, to do something to bring that down? And that's not something I'm saying everybody has to do or needs to do. There was something that happened in my own, right outside my door, actually, where there was a potential situation for violence. And it was a result of a car accident that happened in February. And there was a man swinging a weapon outside my door, and my little kids were watching this. Well, because I do have conflict resolution skills and de-escalation skills, and nobody else was doing anything, and my kids were watching, and this could be a big problem where somebody got hurt or killed. I i chose to go outside and just have a conversation with these men. And so I know that there's some controversy with that. I know that not everybody is called to do the same things in that regard, but we can learn how to be a calming presence and how to be a nurturing presence. And I think that's really kind of circling back to what you were saying in the beginning from Amy. Okay. You're just saying I am here. Thank you, Amy. We appreciate you being here with us.
I think what you were saying about collective trauma and seeing it in the eyes and the face and the energy and the behaviors of people in our everyday community is significant because as a country and as a culture, we are experiencing collective trauma. And one of the things I've learned so much about human resilience and human capacity for empathy and capacity for love through all of this. And it's really phenomenal like how the love is growing because of all this pain. And one of the things I learned in researching the work of Haven Watch. So Haven Watch is an organization in Minnesota that was started in the height of the surge when a mother and her son went to the Whipple Federal Building and discovered that the detainees that were getting released were being released into the cold with nothing, and often not even a jacket in sub-zero temperatures. And so she created this organization of volunteers that would receive these survivors of the detention immediately as they were received. And an interview with a nurse who started working as part of Haven Watch, who started being one of the persons who was there 24/7 to receive these detainees, she said, if we can, there's scientific proof that if we can receive these survivors within 20 minutes of the trauma they experienced, their potential for PTSD and the trauma that they process in their body decreases significantly. And then she even went on to talk about, as a nurse and as a mental health professional, just going through trauma, knowing that other people are there loving you, decreases the trauma. It decreases all of the impact of the pain and so forth. And so one of the things that's really important to me as I'm sharing these stories is to say we need to keep loving. We need to keep sharing that mothering, calming, loving, nurturing essence no matter what. Because the more we emphasize that, the more we are decreasing the trauma and the more we are improving our potential and our resiliency and our ability to process and heal from this in the aftermath.
Yes.
And just through that, I've witnessed in interviewing these women for the book I'm working on, every single one of them has talked about these moments of going through trauma in the moment and how there's this juxtaposition of the extreme trauma and the extreme pain with the extreme empathy and the extreme love, and putting the two together just breaks us open into fully human essence, which is almost like that moment of giving birth and being flooded with oxytocin. You've had this trauma of your body being ripped open to birth a baby, and then that baby is laid on your chest and your whole body just gets flooded with love. Isn't that what mothering's about? Isn't that what our culture and our community needs right now? Is the juxtaposition of those two opposite emotions and bringing them into one.
That's so beautiful, Terry. I love that you brought that metaphor into play. There's so much truth to that when, I've given birth to 5 humans. And so even in that moment where my body is in pain and my body is shedding blood, holding my little baby and looking into their eyes and kissing their little fuzzy head, there is something that numbs that pain. Probably my natural pain receptor sites, right? What are those? What do they call it? Like what opiates do? It's like a natural I can't think of what it is, but I know what I'm trying to say. There is something really beautiful about that moment. And I think that more and more people are learning how to hold both realities. So many of us grew up, I think some of it is generational, I think some of it is cultural. Many of us grew up with dualistic ways of behaving in the world or beliefs. I think some of this comes back to institutions that raised us or particular ideologies that we were raised with, whether it has to do with religion or it has to do with politics or it has to do with education or a combination of things. So many of us kind of just adopted this kind of binary way of looking. It has to be this way or this way. And yet, what you're describing, Terry, particularly in the metaphor of mothering and childbirth as being that metaphor, is that we can have this suffering and this pain, and we can also have this extreme love and healing. And they can exist at the same time in the same place. And that doesn't mean that the suffering and the pain should exist, but what it means is that it does. And if we acknowledge that reality, it doesn't negate or nullify the beautiful gift and presence of someone's nurturing, caring, thoughtful, calm, peaceful gift of themselves. And so I'm noticing that in conversations. And I also believe, from what I understand about trauma as well, that that is also an element of healing, is when we come to a place of integration where we're able to kind of hold this tension of the both and so those are really powerful conversations that I'm seeing and participating in too on this platform and elsewhere. And I wanted to also point back really quickly to what you said about this research, because it reminded me of a book that I read by Peter Levine years ago. And he, in his book, his opening scene, I guess, in this book, and I can't remember the title, he was talking about getting hit by a car, him. And he described how there were two people on site as soon as he was struck. One was an EMT who was very clinical and sterile and emotionally detached. And Peter could feel like his adrenaline kicking in, and he could feel like his nervous system activating. Another was this woman who comes up, holds his hand softly, and looks him in the eye and speaks very, very calmly. I'm here, if you need anything, you can talk through it. You don't have to talk at all. Just know that I'm here for you. I'm not going to leave you. And he said instantly his body started to relax. So this was like a springboard for it was like a thesis for the whole book, where he was talking about how you can take a person in a situation like that where there's a potential for trauma to take place in the body. And it really depends, exactly like what you were saying. It depends on the response from the people around us too, who can maybe help us when we're in a dysregulated state for the parasympathetic nervous system to kick in. Mm. And so he was just talking about letting trauma kind of move through our bodies when we're in a situation that we can't control, we didn't ask for. And that can come in the form of mild tremors or shaking, or like this vibration that we might feel, or a tingling sensation. And that is also why there are people who experience a collective disaster, like a hurricane, or they're in war. Some people have a traumatic effect from that, and some people don't. And it all has to do with how did they process this and who was with them to witness it and help them through it. So I think that really, really points back to what you're saying about how vital it is for these mothering attributes to really take precedence over some of these more traditional and severe, I want to say, ways of behaving that we're noticing are just not working anymore. They're just not. They're hurting us.
Yeah. You've mentioned that Peter Levine story before with me. And as you told it now, I was brought back to my own car accident and the study I've learned. I've researched the hormones, and the hormone that happens when a mother gives birth, and that flood of, I don't feel the pain, I'm just feeling euphoria. That's because of oxytocin, which is called the cuddle hormone or the love hormone. And when your body gets flooded with oxytocin, the first thing oxytocin does is it goes and heals all the things that are broken. It is the ultimate healer. And it happens when someone touches you. It happens when someone speaks to you calmly and so forth. So you're telling the story of Peter Levine, and I remembered my own car accident. I was hit as a pedestrian walking across the street in 2001. And of course, the EMTs came, and I don't remember how I got into the ambulance or anything like that, but I remember being in the ambulance and looking up at the EMT and saying, "Will you hold my head?" And he said, "It's fine. You don't need." And I said, "No, hold my head. Just put your hand there." And he goes, "It's stabilized." I had to tell him 3 times, like, just hold my head. And as soon as his hand went there, I felt better. I felt phenomenally better. And I remember consciously thinking, he may not be an energy healer. He may not have any of these. He's a clinical guy, but I can extract the oxytocin feeling from him. And I did. I consciously thought, just by his hand being there, I can feel connected. I feel that he wants to care for me. And when he did, he just like I was injured over here, but he just put his hand right here and I felt it and everything flushed away. And I think that's what's really, really important from a metaphorical perspective of what's going on in the world right now is we have these traumas that we can't stop. They're happening all over the place. But when they happen, the more people who show up with a hand to hold, a hug to give, a soft voice to speak, a mothering, nurturing, whatever energy that is that feminine, that divine feminine, that's what's going to get us through this. That's what's going to rise us out of this. And that's what's reminding us of the full humanity that is so important in the world. And so this is a turning point in the world where spiritually, energetically, humanely, humanitarianly, we are waking up to the powers of that unconditional, fierce love that we all know because we were all birthed by a mother.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
mother had to love us on some level to give birth. Even if she didn't want to be pregnant, even if she didn't want that baby, she carried that baby to term and she had to do that with some level of love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love the fierce part of that too. When I'm hearing you say that, I'm thinking of courage. I think of what it
Mhm.
means to be brave. And I think um, sometimes there is this quiet way of rippling through the world bravely, where I think it goes, it really, this is like a full circle thing for me from the beginning of when you were talking about these quiet heroes and heroines and how they show up. Because, well, I'm looking also at what Mel wrote. She said, from kids, they skin their knee, and if we are calm, they are calm. If we freak out, they break down. So there's this concept of co-regulation. And I think that that really points to how are we doing these quiet things that, just like you said earlier, nobody maybe will ever see. It could be something like I've taken my kids to the park and they're like, "Mom, I just want to pick up the trash. I don't know why people leave their trash everywhere." And I'm like, "Yes, let's do that." Because now we're also taking care of our earth, our common home, our shared spaces. We want to keep it beautiful. And we talk about that on our walk home. We talk about how important it is to keep our spaces clean and to keep our earth clean because we share it with the birds and the butterflies and the squirrels and other humans. And it's really important for our family. So I think that the ways that we're able to live out our own personal values in these very momentary ways, right, that just kind of instantaneously show up, that's where that fierce love comes in because it's quiet, but it's still brave because it means we're showing up. And I tell
Mhm.
people that all the time when they get discouraged or they feel overwhelmed. I'm like, just show up. You don't have to do anything specific. You don't have to be a certain sort of way. You don't have to have things figured out. You don't have to get it right or perfect or whatever. Just show up. That's really what it's about. And that to me is what it means to be fierce and to show up with love. Because if all we do is have this open heart, moment to moment, day to day, no matter who we're with or where we are, we're going to be able to respond from a place of a good heart. And I think that's what, to me, that's what it means to have fierce love is to step into a role that maybe we are totally unequipped to do, or we've never been in this situation before, but because it's coming from a place of love and that's our motivation. And because we're open to, okay, here I am, I'm showing up. I don't know why I'm here or what I'm supposed to do right now, but I'm going to do the thing that I feel that nudge to do. And it's really about that whole concept of reciprocity and generosity and how they work in tandem, I think, which you and I have talked about before too, Terry. So it really, if we walk around every day with the receptivity activated in us of just being open, like, I don't have a plan, I don't know what's going to happen today, but I am going to receive whatever comes my way, and I'm going to listen to that nudge, and I'm going to respond from a good heart. And I know that probably sounds really, really basic, but it works because it's doable, it's relatable. There's really nothing, there's no pressure to perform. We can just simply be who we are, and that is the gift of who we are in these moments.
I think what you just did is you just described Sarah, your daughter, and her kindness project, and how she completely has no clue, nor organization, no structure, no framework. She's just showing up and sending out cards and making placards and doing lives and saying, I want to show the world how to be kind. And that's really what we need. Is we need more people like Sarah. We need all the world to remember that that kind of love exists
Yeah.
and to keep coming back to that. Um, I think I would like, we talked about it only being 30 minutes. So I'm going to end with that and one story from my book, and then we'll pass it on to you to close it all out. But the story I want to tell you that encompasses all of this is a woman, I'm calling her Julia. All the women of the book are anonymous. They don't want attention. They just want their stories told. And Julia is a school teacher for an elementary school in Minneapolis. And in the midst of the surge, so between Renee Good dying and Alex Preddy dying, there was a shooting in North Minneapolis in a neighborhood that led to a big altercation between ICE and neighborhood people. And she was delivering mutual aid to one of the families from her school that night. And so that place where she was delivering was only 3 or 4 blocks away from where the shooting happened. And when she opened the door to deliver the food, the mother, and I believe the father had already been taken by ICE. So here's a mother with 1 or 2 children, completely shut in, sheltering in place. She was having a panic attack. And so the teacher, who had been delivering for several weeks at that point, it wasn't about just dropping off the delivery and leaving at that point. She'd already started staying for longer just to talk to this woman because she was the only adult contact this woman had every day for a week and forever. This was the only adult contact she had for many, many weeks on end. So as she's having this panic attack, it's the love of the teacher holding this woman saying, I'm here for you. And the woman is just saying, I came from a country where they took advantage of us. And so we moved to the neighboring country and they took advantage of us there too. We could not survive. They were killing us with their use of our labor and our need, treating us terribly. So then I come here and now they're shooting us. They want us dead. Where on this planet can I go? And she's having all the feelings of a panic attack and knowing she can't go to the hospital and feeling like her heart's exploding. And this teacher just holds her and says, I'm here. And I know of 200 people in this neighborhood who provided this food for you. That many people love you. And that oxytocin flooded her, both of them. It was just this apartment filled with this mutual love for each other. And the teacher left that experience and she said to me, I needed that interaction as much as she did.
Yeah.
I needed that connection. I need to sit with her for 3 hours every time I deliver because that is reminding me of how beautiful humanity can be. And it's growing our resilience and it's growing our power and it's growing our potential. And so that mutual connection is what's so important. And your daughter's doing it. You are doing it by telling your kids, yes, we can pick up the trash. We're all doing it by showing up on a live like this and talking about these things, and by reading the stories of these everyday heroes and heroines, and by saying to Andy Kim, keep doing what you're doing in leadership, because this is humanity growing into a higher level of love.
Yes. And I want to acknowledge the people who might be telling themselves, I could never do anything like that, or I've never done anything important in my life, or I don't know how to love, or there are also people who might be incapacitated because They might have a physical limitation or a disability, or they might have had surgery or some kind, there might be recovering from something. And they want to do something more active, but they can't. And the message I want to leave everybody with is that you are love. And no matter what your life circumstance is right now, I'm telling you that you are the essence of love and light. And that it doesn't matter how you bring that into the world today, you can do it. It's something that is in you. It is something that you have to believe. And I'm going to hold spiritually and emotionally hold that belief for you if you don't have it, because I know it's true. And I know that no matter what our life circumstances are, we all have the capability of making a choice to respond to whatever life gives us, moment to moment, day to day, to respond with that fierce love that Terry Lee is talking about. So everybody, it's really been a delight to have you join us. I just want to acknowledge like the gift of your time and your presence,
Mhm.
which I never take for granted, because there is so much vying for our attention. And there's so much out there that's really competing for noise. And so the fact that you showed up here in this space with Terry and I today is a gift to me. So
Me too.
thank you, Mel, Molly, Lynn, Christina, Karen, everybody I'm seeing who showed up today. You matter to me, and I know you matter to Terry, and we're grateful for you. Thanks for being here with
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, I'll post this later. Bye.
Bye.